I'm just going to hit go live, and I'm going to hit record.
Hit the record button.
I have also hit the record button. I see the little wave he's going.
I got a drink of water.
Yeah, I was phlegmy today, I think, because the weather's been... It's actually, that's a good part of the opening bit, so I'll save it. But the only thing worse than bad weather is weather that is just shifting back and forth rapidly. All right. I think we're good to go, so I'm just going to... Oh, wait, I got to point this at the right...
That's the thing, is if you have...
Or stay cold. Can't be in the middle. If it's cold, I can ski. If it's warm, I can do all my other sports. If it's in between, I can't do either.
The thing that bothers me is the warm day that's stuck between cold days. It's like...
Well, you couldn't plan around it. Like, if I knew today was going to be 66 degrees, I would have taken today off.
Exactly. I can't be like suddenly going a long bike. It's like...
No, literally, I woke up this morning.
I realize it's 66. It's too late.
I woke up this morning, and I was like chilling a Red Bull and like getting ready to make some coffee, and it just felt off. And I go over to the window, and it just feels off. And then I opened the balcony door, and it was like, what the fuck?
It was overcast when I woke up.
But it was warm. Way warmer than the forecast said the night before. All right. Anyway. Yeah. Let me point over at Chrome. That I messed that up, and then we're good to go. Let's see. There we go. Right Chrome. All right. I'm going to start right here. Move this little marker. It's Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are reviewing Mamoru Hosoda's 2021 film, Belle.
Ding, ding.
So a classic, a trope on Geek Nights. Like if there's a TV tropes page about Geek Nights, one of the things that would be listed there.
Make one. I don't know if it's still there.
Oh,
how old it is.
I'll look it up while we're talking. But I feel like one of the things that would go there is us saying one of two things. Either warm today or the inverse of that. And the references... Both of which are stolen. Almost every joke we have is stolen. But it was warm today. To a degree that I'm mad about, because if I'd known it was going to be this warm, I would have fucking taken today off work.
Yeah, I mean, 66 degrees Fahrenheit is not what I would say is like really warm. It's
but 66 degrees Fahrenheit
in February 23rd, right?
Oh, February 23rd, when it was like snowing a few days before that, and I was skiing the previous weekend.
Outside, I was touched by snowflakes falling from the sky, at least a few of them.
Yep. And then tonight, it's going to be freezing cold again. Like, rapidly. Like, a cold front's going to come in and ruin this.
Right. And not only that, but like in the morning when I woke up, the sky was overcast, and then in the afternoon, the sun was hurting my eyes again.
It's, the problem is what I need.
And meanwhile, it was 66 in New York City at that exact moment. Our friends in Albany, it was 36, a 30 Fahrenheit degree difference in that short of a distance.
There's going to be a 30 degree Fahrenheit distance for us between today at around 1 p.m. and 4 hours from now.
Yep. I guess we must be on like the edge of some pressure system.
Yep. Oh, did you hear that wind just like rising and rising outside over the last hour? There's a front coming through.
Noise canceling headphones.
Nah. Well, yeah, the window's open, but that led to another problem because the dirt bikes found out that it was warm. I guess someone told them. What I heard out the window a little while ago was the loudest dirt biking I've ever heard outside of when DMX died and there was that procession. But they eventually left. I think they got over the Queensboro Bridge, so they're gone, at least for now.
Okay.
But the worst is, if it stays cold, I'm fine, because I can go ski. If it stays warm, I'm fine. Biking and all the other sports I do. But when it's in between the two or flipping back and forth, I can't do anything. Like, if I know the weather's shitty, we'll like play a board game, or I'll plan to play Civ for 6 hours. But I'm in this like period where I can't actually plan anything. So I waste a day like this working, and then it'll be like a shitty day tomorrow, but I didn't make a plan to do something with that time. And we're just old men ranting about the weather. That's what happens when you do a podcast for 16 years, give or take. So in the news, we got to talk about this first. It's not anime related or comic related or anything, but it happened today, and it's real bad. So we have to talk about it. we cannot cover this in a lot of detail, nor should we, because you should go read real reporting about this and do whatever it is you're going to do. The governor of Texas today basically issued an order saying that
I thought it was a law that the Texas legislature passed.
No, the Texas governor ordered this. He ordered all state agencies.
That's different from what I thought, so I thought wrong.
Yep. So basically, what the Texas governor ordered is that all gender-affirming care, or even the recognition of a gender that's different from, quote, sexuality, which is we all know that is a gradient. People who don't believe that are just wrong. Basically said that affirming that or recognizing that is child abuse. That a doctor...
Does the governor have the power to do this by order?
In Texas? Yes. Texas is a real fucked up state. Texas is a real fucked up state. Governors in America have broad powers. And in Texas, governors have extraordinarily broad powers.
Okay.
I mean, remember, Texas is a state that literally cut itself off from the rest of North America's power grid. There are exactly 4, interconnects for electricity in all of North America. One's Quebec, for reasons you can imagine. 2 of them are the United States, and the 4th one is just Texas by itself. They did this on purpose for terrible reasons. And this goes further. It also requires anyone who encounters a child who expresses trans identity in any way, that has to be reported so that their parents can be investigated for child abuse.
What if you don't report it?
You could be prosecuted for endangering a child.
Even though there's no law, it's just an order.
Basically, the best way I can describe this.
When you go to court, the lawyer is going to be like, "Yes, they broke government order from the governor," as opposed to.
So it's basically the attorney general of the state, the equivalent of the Department of Justice of the state, are all saying, "This is how we interpret the law. This is how we'll prosecute these things."
So what? But I guess they're just counting it as child abuse, as they have an existing child abuse law,
Yep.
and that's what they're.
That's basically what they're doing, and there's a lot of details and nuance that I'm skipping over
So I guess
because
there's going to be some court fights saying.
Well, here's the problem: anything like this will eventually go to the Supreme Court, which has been extremely not on the side of justice, especially around these kinds of issues lately. I would argue the Supreme Court is literally illegitimate right now, based on how it's progressed. So we can't rely on the courts. And Texas
it might not make it to the Supreme Court,
Yeah, well, we'll see how this goes. But this is a rapidly evolving, fucked up, and extremely dangerous situation for kids in Texas. The good news, one little glimmer of hope, multiple county legislators, people in different levels of police in various parts of the state, mayors, have one by one made statements basically publicly saying they will refuse to follow this order. But
I mean, there's even in the reddest of states, right? There's the places where the people live are not.
It's pretty much only blue places in Texas which are doing this, which is very few places.
Yeah.
So this is breaking news that's going to progress, but the only thing I want to point out that I think you should all internalize, because I realize, and I tweet about this a lot, but you shouldn't read my Twitter. My Twitter is 50% me screaming about politics, 20% weird skeletons, and the rest is pictures of rabbits. But basically, all those photos you see from Nazi Germany, all those book burnings, a big percentage of those book burnings were actually from a specific incident where the Nazis went and burned all the LGBT resources in this one institute. And very few people who use those photos talk about what was actually being burned. They talk about, the Nazis burned books. They don't point out that the Nazis actually went after the LGBT community hardest and first in terms of direct actions that they took against them as a community. So use that knowledge as you see fit, and honestly treat 2022 like it's 1922 and do whatever it is you need to do.
Also, leave Texas
if you can. A lot of people can't.
If you can, but if you have a business, don't do business.
Oh yeah, if you can boycott the state of Texas, absolutely. We need to treat it like a failed state almost.
That's in Texas, if you go on I don't know.
I mean, I was already
if you're shopping online
Texas.
and you see something you want to buy, look and see if it's from maybe it's on Etsy or something, right? You can usually see where the Etsy person is from. If they're from Texas, don't buy from them.
Yeah, it's rough though. because a lot of people are trapped there. So just follow the news, figure out, like, I'm trying to figure out exactly what charities to donate to that'll have the most impact, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, that's the story of pretty much all suffering, right? Is, someone lives within political borders
Yep.
that, do not align, with them, right? And it, ranging from, like Texas to like, Uyghurs in China,
Yep.
or, a gay person in Russia, right? It's like, people are stuck living in a place that the politics of that place are not good for them.
And the worst part is, because of the way the United States is structured, there's almost nothing we can do to stop this from outside of Texas, nor can people within Texas effectively stop it short of civil disobedience and mass protests and drastic, like, extra legal actions, partly because the only way to actually stop this legally would be a federal law or a Supreme Court ruling. And
electing a different governor of Texas.
Yep, which is difficult because we didn't pass the Voting Rights Act. So the vote is so suppressed in Texas that even if the majority of Texans disagree with this, it would be very difficult to displace this governor.
Mm.
And I don't know what to do about it. Just keep an eye on this one because the Republican Party's been very...
you do what you can do, but,
Yep.
you're ultimately... one person, what can one person do? Something. But,
Yep.
A collective action can do more. And then what can you do more than that? Not much.
But mark my words and mark the words of activists. This isn't an isolated incident. Texas is, for the Republican Party of America, the incubator of basically the ideas they want to take nationally.
Says that about every state.
No, actually, they pretty much...
All the red states are incubator. They're trying everything everywhere to see what works.
Well, it's more that Texas in particular is the model. Because remember, Texas is the state where they took control of the textbook industry. Texas is a large state that has to suppress the vote.
In Florida, they got stuff going everywhere.
Yeah, but Texas is a state that if the vote weren't suppressed, could be blue. That's why it's often the incubator, because that is a test of how far can they push it in a place that isn't just completely controlled by the Republicans. How far can they push voter suppression?
Even like the reddest state, like what, fucking Idaho or something.
West Virginia might actually be. West Virginia is also the whitest state. 97% white last I looked that up.
Right, but what percentage? There's still probably like, what, 30, 40% blueness? Even
it's I mean that I don't want to derail this to another. We could do a Thursday show on this if you want to talk about this.
I'm just saying, there's people who are stuck there. That was the point, right?
Yep. Oh, there's people stuck everywhere, but Texas now is specifically and materially dangerous to trans children.
Yep.
So not to, it's tough to talk about something like that and then just get on with a newscast. So I don't want to just pull a... So anyway, in the news, but just really don't let this one slide. Like, pay attention to that one. And don't go... If we're the first people you heard about this from, I don't know, subscribe to like one more person on Twitter or something. Like, Jesus. So I guess in other news, there is comics news that is bad. Comixology has basically been destroyed by Amazon.
Well, Comixology was bought by Amazon a long time ago, right? So Comixology was sort of like it wasn't the first ever, I don't think, but it was basically the biggest and strongest digital comics seller, right? Sort of like, I guess, the Spotify or Netflix of comic books in the US. And you could subscribe to various comics to get them in digital ebook form legally. The prices were, in sort of this in-between spot of not being so ridiculously inexpensive that it was a no-brainer, but not being so expensive that it was like a ripoff.
But above everything, the experience, a lot of people had tried to make comics readable in digital form. And technology, a lot of factors in play there. But
different kinds of comics, right? That's the reason I have like this huge shelves behind me.
Yep.
Is because there's, a lot of comics, have different formats, especially ones that were made in the print era before digital comics were a thing. And it's like there isn't, even though it's just a 2D image, there really isn't a way to present the comic in a digital form. It's like, yeah, taking a movie and making it an MPEG instead of film, as long as the resolution's high enough. It's like, right? A MP3 versus a CD. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
But if you just scan in, even with the highest resolution scanner, and make a JPEG out of a 2-page spread in a book, it's not the same. It's actually not the same. It's like one of the few mediums of art where it's like, I guess sculpture would be another one. It's like, yeah, looking at a 3D model of a sculpture versus going to the sculpture physically where you can touch it is not the same if they let you touch it.
Nah.
Right?
But
there's some mediums of art that transform to digital with fine, and there are some that don't, and comics is one of them.
But above all else, what Comixology got absolutely right is their reader was one of the best. Like, it worked so well. I read a lot of comics on that thing over the years.
Yeah, the only way that they could really compete with things like piracy, right, of comics, which is real easy to do, you can just download torrents that have like every Marvel comic that came out this month, right? Every month, someone puts that together from scanning and whatnot. The only way they could compete and actually sell digital comics was, they made software that wasn't perfect, but it was still probably the world's premier and best digital comic reading software across platforms.
And when Amazon bought it, that kept working just fine until very recently.
Amazon was doing a weird thing where it's like, if you went to Amazon.com and looked for a comic, you could like buy it on Kindle and Comixology, right? It was like the same purchase. Like, there was like a manga that was on both, it would just say buy on Kindle and Comixology, $6. You buy it. And then you could now read it in the Comixology app or on your Kindle.
Yep.
I guess if you're reading a normal format black and white manga, that's actually pretty nice to read.
It is. A Kindle Paperwhite's pretty good for a simple black and white comic.
But if you're going to read a Marvel superhero full color X-Men, 24-page issue, a Kindle's not going to cut it. The Kindle app on your computer isn't going to cut it.
Nope.
The Kindle app in a browser on your iPad isn't going to cut it.
But the Comixology reader did a pretty damn good job.
Comixology reader was the best that you were going to get. But, time went on. I feel like it's been years since Amazon bought them.
Yep.
And Amazon's pretty much like, all right, that's enough of that Comixology biz. Let's bring it all into the Kindle zone. Are they even going to keep the brand Comixology? It's like, I don't even know.
And a bunch of stuff happened here, but the thing that people are reacting to the strongest is that the reader that replaced it doesn't fucking work. Like, you can't read comics in this thing. Like, it is broken. If you're watching the stream, like, I'm looking at House of M right now, which I was reading, so I had it in my library. You can't zoom. You can't zoom in and out. It's non-reactive. If you try to zoom, it like changes pages. If you force zoom with the browser, you don't actually get a quality increase. It just zooms in on it's unusable garbage.
Yep.
I literally cannot read these comics now.
Yeah, I mean,
look at this shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reason that I buy, even though
I'm zooming in. Notice how it's not fucking doing anything, and now suddenly it's. I'm so mad about
a lot
this.
Of comics on paper because even the Comixology app was not perfect, but this new thing is like this enormous step backwards. It's complete trash compared to the original Comixology app as it was. So I guess Amazon just really doesn't want people to buy those comics digitally anymore. And the companies publishing those comics, right? I guess Marvel, DC.
Oh, if I was a comic author, I would not even want my comics to be on this platform if that's the experience.
Right. And like the publishers, though, it's like, Marvel is like, they're okay with this move. That's like those people who were paying money for legal digital comics when they could have pirated, right? Are they going to now go to they're not going to keep paying if the app is this garbage, right? First of all, how many are going to stick with it? I can't imagine that many.
Yep.
How many are going to go and buy paper comics? Can't imagine that many.
So here's the question. Was there some intentional reason to make it a worse experience, or is Amazon just actually that incompetent?
I don't know. I guess it's one of those things where it's so insignificant compared to their larger business that they just don't care.
They've got like the weakest product manager and like the C team of engineers on it. Like,
right. It's like the decision-making power came from some brand people who are like, we bought this Comixology thing. We got to integrate it with the Kindle thing. Get that Comixology out of here. Right. They're just making some brand level decision. And then, they want to like, oh, why are we paying all these people to work on this Comixology app? We got a Kindle app already, right? Why? Let's just, merge people, get rid of people, save money. They're not thinking about, the details down there. Probably.
Oh, and the other big change that many of you...
That's just my guess based on what I know about...
So there is another big change. It's but it didn't affect us, but I only found about it from reporting. All the subscription stuff is no longer available outside of the U.S.
Yep.
U.S. only. A lot of it is U.S. only now.
The subscription parts actually entirely.
I feel like they will.
They're just going to make it individual buy, which is all I've ever done was individual buy.
Yeah, Amazon has never liked subscriptions. Like even for like shows that have like ongoing seasons, like they always made it a confusing mess, and they never make it easy for you to just say, "Give me all of Steven Universe" as it comes out. Like they'd always kind of fuck that up.
I'm buying every volume of Chainsaw Man I have bought legally on Kindle. And I have to remember like when a new one's out and go find it and click buy with one click or whatever. And it sends it to my Kindle.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, the worst thing is this is the kind of episode where we'd say, hey, so you should use this instead. As far as I know, there's nothing. I can't think of anything.
You should pirate or use some other, free app, even though it won't be as good. Find a way to use the old Comixology app. Someone will hack something together.
I'll start buy paper comics again and just like give them away when I finish reading them.
Or just don't read. Just read something else instead. Complain to the publisher. I don't know.
Yeah, it's rough. And if you doubt how bad this UX is, I'm going to link to an article that shows like details exactly how bad. It's so much worse than you're imagining.
Yep. All right. So some smaller. But significant news is so everyone, everyone knows Miyazaki. If you're listening to this episode, you got to know who that is, right? And, everyone thinks of Miyazaki's anime because that's most of his work. His biggest works are all animations. And everyone, I think, hopefully knows that he did manga before then, and Nausicaa being the one that's the most popular, right? Much like, Akira has a manga that is longer, bigger, not quite the same as the anime, really, right? Nausicaa is much the same way. There's this huge, sprawling epic tale of Nausicaa, and the movie is just sort of a, sort of small piece of it cast through a prism, right? It's still amazingly good, right? In both cases, Akira and Nausicaa. Anyway, but did you know that Miyazaki made other manga besides that? He did, but they've never been available legally in English, or even, I've never even seen them available illegally in English either, maybe somewhere. But one of them is going to be published in English legally. Shuna's Journey from 1983, so a manga that's as old as I am almost, is going to be available later this year in English, translated.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, so that's
you won't be able to read it on Comixology.
It's like you had Miyazaki mangas you were holding out on, and these manga companies are publishing like some garbage no one's ever heard of, and like 2 people read, right? It's like, come on, people. If there's legendary all-time great mangas, bring those on over. I thought, you thought you finished the job back, last decade. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't finish the job. Get back on it. All right, now real sad news. So there is a person named Kazutaka Miyatake who is a mecha designer, right? So a lot of the robots and other, mechanical things in many old famous animes like Space Battleship Yamato and Arcadia My Youth and Macross Plus, right? This guy had a large hand in designing the mechas of various kinds and ships and things in all of those anime. I can't imagine, and that it's an interesting position in that, as an artist and creator, you had such a large hand in making something that was so significant to a lot of people, like the design of like a particular airplane in someone's favorite show can end up being like this legendary creation. But the actual compensation for doing that work is like and the amount of work that this person did, I can't imagine they don't have other jobs besides mecha design because like there's only so many things that they worked on.
Yeah.
Right. But tragedy has struck this person in that there was an electrical fire in their apartment. This dude is like, old.
He's 72 and he was
71 or
injured.
72.
He escaped, but he was injured in the fire and lost his apartment.
He lost his apartment and he lost his wife.
Yeah.
Right? In a horrible fire. It was like devastating. So this person has created significant, meaningful artworks that have a place in people's hearts around the world. I can't imagine was ever compensated well for. Was living in this tiny apartment. It got set on fire. He lost the person he loved the most in addition to all kinds of stuff. He's been living in, right? Oh, look at this. A government that, for what I'm sure there's plenty of bad things we can say about the Japanese government, but the local government provided him a place to live. In the meantime, in the U.S., he'd be on the street, right?
Yep.
So, unless he had a relative or something, or who knows what, so there was a GoFundMe to raise some money to help this guy out. A few tens of thousands of dollars, which is not a large amount of money considering the grand scheme of the world. But it's just a real sad story, especially in the context of like. A lot of other tragedies I keep seeing in, the Japanese animation and manga world, right? You had, the arson attack in Kyoto, I guess also involving fire, right? That was way worse than this. And this is already extremely terrible.
Yep.
And
for an industry that pays you basically almost nothing.
Right. As a whole, right? This is just a microcosm of the greater industry, right? Where you have people doing works that, creating art that have huge cultural significance.
They're impactful. They're beloved.
Right. To certain people, there is not a lot of compensation for it. The lives of those people isn't necessarily, that luxurious, unless you're like, the few people who are like mega hits, right? Like the Miyazaki, for instance, I'm sure he's doing all right. And meanwhile, on top of that, you have all sorts of additional dangers and tragedies, some that befall all of us, like pandemics, but also, like in the Kyoto thing, you had, disgruntled people coming at them.
Yep.
Right? It's just like these little old animators just doing their drawings, and they got to deal with extra bullshit on top of the bullshit everyone else already has to deal with.
Yep, all within the broader late capitalist dystopia that we all live in.
Yep. So, your daily reminder. The anime industry.
All right, I think we can move on. Start on a downer and then end on a downer with the news.
That's right.
All right, let's see.
Downer day.
We could downer. In the old days, we do like downer week on Geek Nights or something.
Downer. There's not any material for upper week though.
Yeah, no. Upper week. Yeah, there's really no good tech news.
Upper week. If I close all my eyeballs and don't read any news about
Wait, upper week.
happens,
The space somehow, despite human bullshit, they did launch that space telescope.
Yeah, it's like if I just go about my life ignoring and just not thinking about or learning about anything that's happening where I can't see, I won't know that there's any wars or genocides or
It's funny. That's the thing. The other day I was petting Moogie. Moogie was out being cute. I was like, oh, Moogie, you don't know anything about no war in Europe.
That's right. You don't know.
You just want a craisin.
If I just pay attention to the things that are in my immediate vicinity, then life is pretty great, actually.
Yep.
I
But
have food, I have a nice place to live.
the more we do that, the more we're complicit in the system we exist within.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, I guess we'll do things of the day. All right. But anyway, things of the day. I realized I just did the but anyway thing, like I said I wouldn't in the beginning of the show, but here we are 20 minutes later. Anyway, so this is very much my kind of thing. Not just like a YouTube video about it, but
This is a rare instance where Rim has the thing of the day that's much better than my thing of the day.
in real life, this is the kind of shit I like am really invested in. Like imagine you're hiking through the woods, just like in the middle of nowhere. You find a pipe or you find a hole, and then you poke a stick in it and you realize that hole goes way deeper than the stick. And then you wonder.
I can't give you any specifics because my memory's not that good, but I've definitely had experiences of this nature.
Oh, I've climbed inside of old aqueducts before. I've broken into buildings. I spent hours poking around inside of an abandoned refinery, like an oil refinery that Texaco owned in Beacon. So what did these kids do? Thing of the day, they found a really deep mystery pipe in the woods, but unlike young Rim, they live in a world where they just have a GoPro. So they strapped a flashlight and a GoPro to a string, and they just lowered the GoPro as far as they could lower it into this pipe, and then they pulled it out, and then they looked at the video to see what the fuck was down there.
Yeah. The only disappointing thing is that, it's a directional flashlight. So when they got to the bottom, they couldn't see that much. I think what I would have liked.
But what was fascinating is when they got to the bottom, there's actually something down there. There's like a big cave.
Yeah, they're right. So I think what you could do is you could actually go back for a rerun, take some like flares or something and shove them down the hole first. And then send the GoPro down.
I'd go further. I am confident in an environment like this, because I'm pretty sure I know where this is, roughly.
Where this is?
Well, because the kind of forest it is implies the region. But I didn't even have to do this research, because when I scroll down, one of the first comments is, geologist here. The first 15 feet or so are a steel casing.
The geologist knows exactly what the fuck's going on in a hole in the ground.
The geologist is like, it's probably...
The might as well be hole in the ground expert.
It's probably like in the Appalachian Mountains, like maybe upstate New York. It's this kind of thing. It's that kind of thing. It was probably an old time natural gas well. They you can see the drill bit at the bottom, like that thing. That was the drill bit from when they drilled it. They probably accidentally found a giant cave, which fucked up their natural gas well. So they gave up and drilled somewhere else. And this is just what they left behind.
Mm-hmm. Is there any gas? I mean, I guess if you threw a match down there, would that explode?
Nah, because they just dug a hole they were going to do a natural gas thing. It's probably not there anymore. The hole's open and venting. You can read this comment. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's why I made it the thing of the day. We live in a world where some kids can find a hole and throw a GoPro down it for funsies, and immediately some rando on the internet can actually, from that video alone, explain in detail what that hole is with a high degree of accuracy. That is an amazing world to live in if we can just deal with all this other shit that's going on.
Yep. Even just 10, 15, years ago, that hole, if someone came across it, would have been like, some kids might throw some rocks down there for fun. The end.
Then I might have risked lose my flashlight, just throw it down there just to get a glimpse, and then that's it. Maybe throw a match down there, which depending on when.
There was water at the bottom. So.
There was water at the bottom.
Unsurprisingly. All right. So now my thing of the day, which is still quite good. So there's this dude. I think according to the video, he's in Iran.
Nope.
And he's got one leg. It's a one-leg dude.
Yadollah Gholami.
Despite being a dude who's got one leg, this dude parkours. Like, wow, he parkours. Like, better than I'm ever going to parkour. That's for sure. Right? So it's pretty cool. And whenever I see videos like this, I have two thoughts. One is, I definitely don't want to end up, in a situation where my body is damaged or missing a leg or anything like that. But if I'm ever so unfortunate that does happen, even though I will do my best to avoid it, I would hope that I have the psychological fortitude to, make the most of it like, this dude is, and not just be sad one leg.
I think about that a lot because honestly, similarly, when I ski, I ski a lot. Like I ski pretty hardcore stuff. That's like a main hobby of mine. But very often when I'm skiing, I'll see people skiing in sleds. Like there are skis for people who are paralyzed from the waist down. There's a form of skiing for blind people. Like you can ski where basically two people ski like near you with leads, and they can tug on you and sort of guide you and shout directions. So you can ski and they're like sort of guiding and being your eyes. There's all these cool adaptive things, and it's very much that same sentiment. I think if something unfortunate ever happened to me, that is what I hope I would be capable of doing. I hope I can be as good a skier as that blind dude that I see fucking killing it over the moguls when I'm out there at a trail somewhere.
And, to be honest, my current extremely abled body that I have, that pretty much I don't think I have any significant disability.
Give it time. Wait till you turn 40. Things start to go downhill in a hurry, as I have discovered.
That's true. Even with 2 functioning legs, like I can't ice skate for shit. I'd probably be better at sled hockey with 1 leg.
Though I will say this.
I had 2 legs regular hockey.
I got to play a little sled hockey in the Cub Scouts when I was a kid. It is hard as shit. It is so hard.
I didn't say it's easy, but
no, I could say you could probably be better at that than regular skating, just because I've seen you skate. Full disclosure. No judgment. You should see what I look like trying to snowboard. I am. It is embarrassing.
Yeah.
In the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book. So refreshing to say this. It is The City We Became.
Mention what the book used to be.
It is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. We're going to do the show like within a month. We might record it like way in advance of that, but we're going to do the show in a month. So you got about a month to read this thing.
One listener in our Discord told me that they're 20-something% done with it. So, people are moving right along. So
it's a fast read. It's a good read. It's a very GeekNights book. It's a very New York book. It's got some beats that are going to drop where you're going to go, damn, that's what Rim was. No, I didn't finish it yet.
So you didn't get to the beats that drop.
No, but you and Emily have repeatedly told me that there are beats without spoiling them, and I know they're coming.
All right.
I'm really excited to plow through this book. I don't think it's going to be a long read.
I just imagined the beat again, and I got the tingle. I do want to hear from people though who are not people who are familiar with New York City. Maybe you've never been here, you've never lived here, maybe you only visited a couple times, right? You're not like a New Yorker by any stretch, because this book is so New York. I want to hear from people who are not so New York and how the New Yorkness comes across. Do you not understand what's going on? Or do things just sort of?
I'm really curious about that too, because before I moved here, even to the Mid Hudson Valley or RIT, I knew New York City's a thing, but and I knew Brooklyn's a thing. I guess that's part of New York City. And I'd heard of Queens. I didn't know Staten Island was part of New York City at the time. I literally didn't. And I knew the Bronx was a thing. But I didn't know which one was which or where they are or anything about them. And even when I first moved here, I had that NFT guide. And it was Manhattan.
Not the bad kind.
No, the only good NFT was the Not for Tourists book, which was basically imagine a book that does what a cell phone with Google Maps does today, just for New York City.
Yep.
In an era before people had smartphones. It was a real important book. But the whole book was just Manhattan. And then it had one very small chapter called The Outer Boroughs, in case you venture there. So, otherwise, we'll probably have some virtual panels at ZenkaiCon. We'll probably have a panel or two at PAX East. Maybe just me, maybe me and Scott. That's all up in the air, of course. But
numbers are looking good. But
I plan to go to PAX East for probably
traveling all that way just to do a panel is kind of a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, it is. But what's weird is I almost missed that, because remember, my life outside of GeekNights until COVID was flying around the world constantly for work shit, going to Boston for one meeting and then taking the Acela home. That was a life I lived. So,
I mean, if it was, I guess if it was safe to eat indoors, which it probably won't be, then suddenly,
if it was safe to eat indoors, I would go to PAX East for a day or two, maybe even stay the night.
The worthiness of the trip would rise significantly.
Yeah, because Boston, good restaurant scene, though I have bad news. Based on a cursory examination of Google Maps, the number of restaurants within walking distance of PAX East has dropped precipitously.
Oh, no. I was suggesting, if I'm going, if let's say it's perfectly safe, right? But I'm only going to PAX East.
No, we go to PAX East, and then when we're done, we go to the good part of Boston and eat in those good. We go to that Indian place.
Or we could go to the secret breakfast, then go to PAX East, then go back. Then
go to the Indian place.
Over there.
For dinner. Then get that ice cream from the place. Or Trident Cafe. If that's still there.
Something like that, right?
Yep.
We could make it good, but without the indoor dining situation, going there becomes
Indoor dining is like the last. I don't think I'm going to do that anytime soon, especially because even the places that are good and have vaccine mandates are about to drop them. So I'm even less inclined to eat indoors without a mask on anytime for the foreseeable future.
We're still going to see how it goes.
Yeah, but depending on the situation, we could take the Acela there and back. It's a pretty quick trip if you take the Acela.
It's a lot of money though for one lousy trip.
Yeah,
day trip.
or I'd be willing to drive us there because I'll be going anyway.
That's a lot of time though.
But then I don't have to wear a mask during the whole trip.
I guess it's not that big a deal.
But the problem is driving to Boston wouldn't be that much cheaper than the Acela because not just tolls, parking in Boston is like if you made a list of things Rim is unwilling to deal with and is mad about, parking in Boston is like weirdly in the top 10 on Earth, not counting things like fascism. So anyway,
if PAX East was only during the summer,
oh my God, then it wouldn't matter. Yeah, we go to that barbecue place that's outside.
Well, if it was in the summer, we could arrange it so that we bike to PAX East.
Ooh,
right?
biking to Boston's eminently doable.
Bike home from PAX East and you just keep our bikes in the hotel room.
Yeah. Or even we drive there, but we bring the bikes and we just bike to when we're on lunch, we bike to the secret breakfast place.
Well, they have bike share in Boston. You could do
True. It's kind of like City Bike. Last time I used it, it was not that expensive, but that was in like 2014, I want to say.
I also don't know where the fuck I'm going. That's the difference. The City Bike, I know where the hell I'm going.
I actually do know. I've spent a lot of time in Boston.
I vaguely know. I know the general directions.
I've probably spent literally 10x more time in Boston than you have in my life. So
anyway,
let's get right into it. So Mamoru Hosoda is one of those rare people, like in spitting distance of people like Satoshi Kon, in that basically batting 1,000 or at least batting like 990.
Yeah, he's like in the 900s, I'd say.
Yeah, in that he's never made a stinker, but of the 7 movies he has made, we've reviewed all of them on Geek Nights.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, I think we have. I don't think you ever watched The Girl Who Left Her Time.
I don't think I saw Wolf Children either.
What? We saw it in the theater. At least I saw it in the theater.
I think I didn't.
How? Why did you? Anyway, I've seen all of
I
them.
missed that one somehow.
Well, we should watch it. It's okay. It's not his best movie, but it's good. I liked it a lot. But so
I never saw those Digimon ones either.
those are technically short films, so they don't count.
Okay.
So he has done one of the One Piece movies, which happens to be the best One Piece movie.
Yeah, that's the only one I saw.
The Baron Omatsuri and the Secret Island.
That's the one I've seen.
But also, that movie is basically the weird One Piece movie that doesn't fit into the rest of them, kind of like Beautiful Dreamer.
Well, it's one of those ones where it doesn't fit into the continuity because it's like we go to an island, we have an adventure, then it's over the end, right? So
but also, it's kind of just Slayers the Motion Picture with different characters. More literally.
That's what makes it good.
Yep, way more literally than you might imagine when you watch it. Like, when the beat drops in that one, you'll be like, "Oh, Rim wasn't kidding. It is literally the same goddamn movie."
It's basically, yeah.
The Girl Who Left Her Time, which I think is his second best film. Like, good God, is that movie great? Summer Wars, fantastic film. Wolf Children. I think I cried like 6 or 7 times during that movie. The Boy and the Beast, super fun. Mirai, I want to live in that house more than I want most things on Earth. And Belle, the one that just came out.
Right, so it didn't just came out. It came out like last year.
2021.
We could have gone to see it right away, but we didn't because COVID.
Yep, because COVID.
It came around again, and we didn't see it because COVID.
But then it got us.
I could have seen someone pirated it from an online film festival that I missed, and I could have watched that, but I didn't.
Yep. Emily and I got invited because Emily has film connections, so we got invited to an Oscar screening with free tickets.
Well, that was just the initial screening that you could have bought tickets to.
Yep, but that was it. It was like other people could go to it, and the COVID numbers were worse then.
Yeah,
but
I think that was just the first screening, and I guess you were under the impression it was some special different screening.
Well, because we got invited to it sort of separately, and there was a function and other stuff around it.
Just
so
the first screening that was, I said I'm not buying tickets to, even though I could have. Anyway.
So then, luckily, the museum near us just had a screening, and
the only museum that I have ever and am currently a member of, the Museum of the Moving Image.
Great place.
Yep. So, which is I can just walk.
I still think back to that Chuck Jones exhibit they had there.
Yeah. So, there's they do this from time to time, and I guess I can possibly rely on them to do it more often.
Yeah.
They got nerds running the place. They got video game exhibits and shit, right? So they've been showing the hot anime movies in like second runs after the other theaters run them.
And their theater is small, extremely high quality, like soundproof padding.
Yeah, it's they have this theater, and it's basically like the A+ movie theater, right? It's like they're constantly upgrading it, to make sure that it's the best a movie theater can be. They even got 70 millimeter projector. They got everything. Right?
They require, at least for now, still vaccination to get in. And
the strictest policy I've ever seen.
You have to wear a mask the whole time, and they don't even sell concessions, nor are you allowed to bring food in.
And the capacity is at 50%. They won't sell all the seats even.
Yep.
Right. And they this place is super paranoid. They upgraded all their ventilation systems and So it's like, okay, they're that paranoid, and they have all those policies, and the numbers are way down, right? I think we can go to this movie.
And it was weird because that's the first time I've been to a movie theater since
in like 2+ years.
Since like March 2020.
I don't even remember the last time I went to a movie theater. Right.
I remember
we finally got to see the freaking movie that we waited so long.
Yep,
to see.
Belle, or the actual title, The Dragon and the Freckled Princess.
Right. So, obviously, we had seen plenty of trailers. We knew it was going to be about music. We knew it was going to be about some sort of VR cyberspace, similar to Summer Wars. We knew it was going to be a Beauty and the Beast deal. Did I say that already? If it's not, it's apparent from the title.
Yep.
Right?
And what we knew from early, like people who had seen it before us, was everyone kept talking about how beautiful it is. And you could clearly see that parts of it were sort of 3D CG and parts of it look 2D.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of what the movie's about, of course.
Yep. So the early reactions were all like tremendously positive. But then when it came out in the US, I saw some positive reactions, and I started to see some more mixed or negative ones.
Though I can say most of the negative reactions I saw were, I hate to stereotype this way, old people who didn't seem to understand it. Like they didn't get what it was talking about.
Maybe. Who knows? Regardless, an original anime movie that isn't, it's not an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, despite heavily referencing it. So it's like, we always say I'm going to be excited for that, right? So we went and we saw it, and I think it was pretty good.
I think it was phenomenal. It's not like the best, like it's not in my top 10 movies ever, but I think it's Mamoru Hosoda's third best film, far and away.
It's definitely among his movies. It is one of the better ones, but I don't think it is good enough to elevate him to like the next level. I still put him and Makoto Shinkai sort of like behind.
I think Belle is materially better than anything Shinkai had, except possibly his first work.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're on like the same level, but regardless.
Yeah. Now, granted, your name. Well, anyway, but what's interesting is that just watch it. Like if you haven't watched it, like just go watch it as soon as you can, because it's great.
About whether this movie is an 8, 9, 10, A-,
8.7. No, it's a 9.2.
It's a movie that you should absolutely go see if you have the opportunity to see.
There is no reason for anyone, any human who has the capacity to see this movie, to not see it. Like it's a perfectly fine movie, and it has a lot to say. I took a lot away from it.
Can I name a movie that came out in 2021 that's better than this movie? It's like,
Can I?
I don't. I guess Dune, right? Is Dune better than this? Not really.
But was Dune better than this is a very complex and difficult question to answer that almost is asking the wrong question.
I guess I put them on the same overall quality.
I'd say I was similarly excited for different reasons, but you know why this is a better movie? This is a movie. Dune was part 1.
That's true.
This is a complete movie. It ends. It says everything it needs to say. And I'm going to even say something a little more controversial, because I've seen Summer Wars again more recently than you. It kind of is, in some ways, a better and tighter Summer Wars that addresses the reality of the internet and the reality of how people use technology far more realistically than Summer Wars did. Well, in a bit, we're gonna assume you saw it, and we're not gonna like spoil, but we have to reveal some things to talk about this movie with any depth.
Yeah. I think that the movie was actually an inverse Summer Wars, right? Where Summer Wars, the majority of the story of Summer Wars is taking place outside of the cyberspace.
There's a real world, and cyberspace intrudes into the real world and causes problems.
And cyberspace is like this small thing off to the side in Summer Wars, but the climax of Summer Wars ends up being fully in the cyberspace.
So imagine the early internet where websites and like early social media are really isolated. Not like you could, there was a time when you could look at how you interacted on the internet and look at your real life, and they were for a very brief period very separated from each other. That separation was fictitious and disappeared as soon as technology spread more. And that movie sort of addresses how that happened. Like suddenly the problems of the internet, nope, they're in the real world. Guess what? Hospitals are having problems because of internet shit.
Yeah. So in Belle, you have a complete integration of the cyberspace and the real world, right? People are occupying both spaces at the same time. Events don't like just happen in one place or the other. They happen overall, and there you see those events in both places.
Yep.
Right?
And I'd go further and say
just
that
like the real world,
this movie, like the core message of it, fundamentally, if you just zoom out, is that especially if you look at kids today, like people younger than us who live in the world as it is today, the internet is just part of the real world, is just part of their lives. They're inseparable. You can't pretend that one is somehow different or special. And the problems people have in both sides follow each other, and everyone is living a dual life, whether they realize it or not. And this movie portrays that in a just profound and direct way. And I guess Summer Wars had a lot of kind of fakey technology as part of it, like the encryption stuff and the password. Like it just didn't really map. This Belle almost maps one-to-one to the reality of how young people interact with the internet and how it works for them. It's just a much more realistic movie, despite being set in a future with
despite the unrealistic, put in some things in your ears and you're in medical.
Exactly. Like it's showing, it's kind of like how Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, to use an anime example, it portrays very realistically how information travels on the internet and the problems that causes in the real world, but it shows that to you via cyber bodies and ridiculous nonsense that does not exist in the real world.
Right. So then, so compared to Summer Wars, it's integrated versus separated.
Yep.
But then the climax of Belle, right? Whereas the climax of Summer Wars is resolved in cyberspace.
Yep.
The climax of Belle is in the real world, is what matters.
And that's why I think this movie is so great, and why I think I have a slightly higher opinion than you. That's really what I'm focused on. The fact that this movie, in the end, basically says, look, what's the premise of you, the virtual world, the metaverse of this universe? Escape yourself, start a new life. And what's the climax of this movie? You are you. You cannot escape yourself by going to the internet. That's a dream that a company is trying to sell you.
There's a famous song. You can't hide from yourself.
Yep.
Wherever you go, there you are.
And but it goes deeper than that. Like like the way the movie portrays this, there's a scene where Belle's friend, the main character, her friend, is helping her become a VTuber, basically. Like that's what's happening. Like you get a sort of montage of it. And she's this like gremlin-y internet person. And her avatar in the universe is this sort of gremlin-y looking ghost. But there's a scene where she is logged in and like interacting in the metaverse, but she's also sitting at her computer, turned around, looking at the main character, talking to her. And behind her on the screen, her avatar is emoting and doing the things she's doing in real life. And it really, like, that scene in particular crystallizes this duality and just portrays it in a really interesting way. And you see that type of portrayal throughout the movie.
Right. I mean, I don't disagree with any of that, but I think the things that brought the movie down for me has nothing to do with like, the message or the plot. And in fact, the characters in this movie, I think it's got amazing characters.
They're very human characters.
Right. All the characters are like interesting and have personalities and are right.
And they're funny. This kind of movie, and anime in particular, just generally doesn't tend to have a particular kind of like direct comedy. That this movie has a scene in a train station that I was laughing out loud almost uncontrollably during.
Right. I think the parts of this movie, I think they just brought it down was that, in the beginning, it's a little bit disjointed, right? They clearly took this opening scene, right? Like the epic, sort of, singing on the whale thing that you can see in the trailer as the opening scene of the movie. But chronologically, that's not where the movie starts. It's like immediately after that, they sort of rewind and go back to say, how did we get there?
Yep.
And it just that beginning, it just becomes a little disjointed. And I was like, for like a couple minutes, I was like, wait, does this happen before, after? It's like we went back. Is this a flashback? Did we flash forward yet? Oh, we're not flashing forward. We just rewound after the first scene and then pressed play. And then when we got to the first scene, we skipped over it.
I can see that. I mean, I guess it felt natural to me. Like I got it immediately. Like there was zero confusion, or like I didn't even think about that. But I can see how that could happen.
Where exactly chronologically does that first scene like insert after the rewind? Right. It's like, it wasn't clear. Right. So it's like I knew stuff that was then didn't know, it wasn't, anyway. That was a little bit And then the other thing is that, there were a lot of quality concepts, I think, and like mini messages inserted throughout the movie, like the baseball player guy.
Yep.
And
or the Tumblr doxing brigade specifically.
Yeah, the singing grandmas, right?
When we spoil a little bit, the singing grandmas, the moment when they reveal a piece of information among themselves was a very good moment in that movie.
No, it's real good.
Yeah.
But you can clearly see, the movie was trying to say a bunch of more things, right? That were all good things to say that were relevant. But it often said them as sort of like, it was like sudden and out of nowhere, like insertions, right? It's like,
See, I didn't really see that though. I saw it more as they felt like natural evolutions of how, I guess, it
was almost jump cutty where it's like, well, who could
you said it. So this is what I was getting at. This is hard to articulate.
Who could this bad guy be? Let's Google search. Is it this guy? This guy? This guy? It's like, what? You're just
But that flowed really naturally for me. Like that felt like how the internet is. And I think
suddenly it's like someone's just doing a Google search, and then that Google search they just did, it's like instantly, suddenly it's like, no, that those things they just searched for, that's actually important. Right? Even though it was on the screen for like.
So here's a theory I have, because would you disagree? And this is good faith. Like I'm not making fun of you or trying to make some weird point. I have a point about the movie that you and I are too old to be truly in touch with like the Zennials below us. Like we can't 100% know them, let alone people younger than them.
Obviously can't 100% know them, but
we are closer to them and understand them better than say people older than us, but we are not 100% in touch with what kids today like.
No, I mean, because it's like on the one hand, I see some of the things that they're into,
yeah,
and I don't poop on them because I learned my lesson not to poop on the kids. But when I see the things that they like, it's like, okay, they must like that sort of thing, but I don't like that sort of thing.
Would you disagree with the statement that I am not saying that I am like radically closer in touch to those kids, but I am a little closer to the younger generation than you are in terms of sensibilities, like a little bit.
I think you do like some internet trash stuff more than I do.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I am closer to that. I'm not saying that is good or bad. I'm simply saying that
in that one aspect that you would enjoy, a Homestuck or an Undertale, and I wouldn't, right? And
so
that's not even that young, right? That's old already.
Yeah, right. Sans Undertale is a boomer character.
Yeah.
So I noticed that people who are the closer someone is to Zennial and younger, the more not necessarily positive reception of the movie they had, but the less they have the kinds of questions or complaints that you have. Because the things you described as being jarring did not register at all to me as jarring. That Google search scene, I would have cited.
In general, I like a movie that has establishing stuff.
Oh yeah, but I would have. But what I would have said,
they had things that happened and mattered that were not given enough frames of animation to establish them before they mattered.
So my theory is that someone with a younger internet sensibility would not notice that or not see it as jarring or almost expect that. I was even going to cite later, like I had a note that one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Google search part, because I was about to say, before you jumped in and said a different thing, that scene was one of the best examples of having the internet act like it really does for people in the real world and how things are. Like some drama happens in real life. Suddenly there's a bunch of private net messages and a bunch of Google searches and some doxing and nonsense that's happening. And it's rapid fire. It's resolved and people move on. And two montages.
On the one hand, that's correct. But on the other hand, it's like, you know, if there's some sort of thing like that, and it's like, all right, let's go to the Reddit thread, and it's like, okay, here's people are suspecting, you know, it's A, B, or C. It's like, that's just all a bunch of bullshit. I'm not gonna take it, right? It's like that would be real internet when it's like.
But it kind of is. The internet doxes and narrows down one of the mysteries to like this set of people, and then one by one you see like the mob of internet bullshit reached back into the real world, and then suddenly a baseball player has to like issue a statement, and like all these echoes happen. All I'm saying is that the way those scenes were put together, I think
part of it, yeah.
But I'm saying the way those scenes were put together, like your complaint about them, the jarring nature, the lack of frames paid attention to them, like how it just moves on, the quick rapid cuts. I think that is just the sensibility of a younger internet generation that I am a little too old to be close to, and you are for various reasons further from. So it bothers you more than it bothers me. Hence, I did not even notice the complaints you raised until you raised them in this podcast just now.
I think, you know, it's not really, I don't think it has to do with sensibility. I think this has to do with, you know, cinematography.
But I think that style of cinematography.
I don't even know if that's actually the sensibility of younger people, or, you know, is it just he wanted to cram a lot of things into the movie and he didn't have time for all that. So rather than cut things, he squeezed them. Right?
But I felt like the way it was squeezed actually.
It doesn't mean that,
I guess my opinion is the way it was squeezed made it punch more and work better in the film and tell the film story better, and you disagree.
I'm not going to assume that because the creator's decision is it because the creator knows the audience so well, right?
Oh yeah, I am still going from the author is dead until I get a chance to maybe like ask him a question. So because I did get to ask the Satoshi Kon a question once, and he was very much like, nope, that was not our intention. In fact, we didn't even know how that show was going to end while we were making it. We had to scramble.
Things go.
We had to scramble to make those last two episodes. We literally didn't know how Paranoia Agent was going to end until we started production of the penultimate episode.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some other things. So first of all,
the music.
The movie, obviously.
I was listening to the soundtrack on loop.
It heavily focused on music, clearly.
Because the main character, like this is not a significant spoiler. She's a VTuber, straight up.
It's Macross Plus. It's Macross Plus. Right?
A girl becomes a VTuber, and that's a big part of the plot.
Right. So they released the soundtrack before the movie. You know, they focused on the song and the trailer, right? You know, when we're talking about the Beauty and the Beast aspect, we're talking Disney Beauty and the Beast. It's a musical.
Yep.
Right.
To the level of there is deep homage to the point that there is a scene where the Beauty and the Beast dance together, and it is just like
there's a room full of roses as opposed to the single rose. It is not just alluding to the original Beauty and the Beast, you know, fairy tale. It is
the Disney one specifically.
The Disney
to the point that it has a rotating CG scene of a dance that is identical to the one in the Disney one, which if you don't remember, when the Disney Beauty and the Beast came out, there were documentaries talking about how they made that one scene.
Right. So they also, instead of a bunch of talking China, they had a bunch of
the little AI. Those AIs were a
little group of AIs.
They were so cute. I love the little sea anemone look, the sea cucumber looking one.
All alone. He's a sad dude, right? So, but while all those like incidental things and homages to Beauty and the Beast are there, the overall story is not the story of Beauty and the Beast.
Nope.
Right? It's like they just took those elements, scenes and references and setting, character, but the story of Beauty and the Beast like doesn't align with this one that much. Right?
Well, I would argue it aligns more than you're letting on, but There's can't.
There's a Gaston named Justin.
Well, Gaston is literally just like the mod of a Tumblr or a subreddit that's full of angry doxing furries.
Right. There is an angry mob who wants to, who's against the beast, right? Just like the original.
But why are they against the beast? Because the beast is a troll who does go around wrecking havoc, and I can't say more without spoiling major emotional and plot beats.
I mean, I can spoil original Beauty and the Beast, right? In a Beauty and the Beast kidnaps Belle's dad, right?
Yep, but I guess without spoiling things, when you watch this movie, think about how the Beast acted in the universe, why Belle and the Beast interacted at all, why Belle was able to reach the Beast in the end, and then what the actual climax of the movie is on that rainy street. All of that together is very close to some of the fundamental themes of Beauty and the Beast, even Disney's Beauty and the Beast, even though the literal plot points of that movie diverge wildly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The plot is not the same, but all these other things are in a lot.
And I would say what the Beast represents and what it is in terms of the actual story, once you see what the whole story was, is fantastic and extremely well done. And a similar story was told in Hypnospace Outlaw. Kind of literally. And it's an important story because a big theme of this movie is there are people who act online a certain way differently from how they act in the real world because of trauma or issue in the real world. And this movie, on one hand, it shows the worst parts of the internet. Because what are the worst parts of the internet right now? Doxing brigades, bullshit mobbing, online harassment. Swatting. But what are the good things about the internet? These are two human beings who, pre-internet, could never have met, and no one could have helped the person who is the Beast. They're just cut off from the world and alone. But the internet allowed them to find someone they could trust and talk to. A connection that was positive was made that could not have been made pre-internet.
It shows you the good.
Well, it's showing you the beauty and the beast of social media and the internet. The modern internet brings great things and terrible things, and we have to take them all.
It is true that, there's not a lot of other movies, at least not ones that I've seen. Most of the times when you get a cyberspace, it's like, some far future unrealistic cyberspace, right? Or, some ancient archaic idea that doesn't match reality. It's like, this is, the VR part of it is not, real, but everything else about it maps the contemporary internet. Right?
Like right now, we're doing a show, even though you're seeing our physical faces if you're watching the live stream, the Rim and Scott you know from this is not actually the Rim and Scott in real life. Though they are similar, they are not the same.
All right, so I do want to talk about the one scene in the movie, the best possible scene.
Should we say spoiler line?
In the train station.
Oh, the train station. I did not expect a scene like that to happen, and much like the elevator scene in Evangelion, there is a power in having a silent, unmoving frame persist on a screen in an animated movie.
It also saves money.
But it was just long. And we're sitting in the theater, and as that scene unfolds, bit by bit, people in the audience start laughing. And it just kept growing and growing and growing to the point that the entire crowd was just guffawing at a relatively straightforward joke that was just executed very well.
In some ways, it does feel like it could have been one of those movies where someone thought up a bunch of amazing scenes and then found a way to stick them together. And if that is the case, this is one of those scenes that they thought of in advance.
Yeah.
They want to stick that in.
Well, because there's a sub-theme with that kid in particular around it's the same message as Master Keaton and some other things we've talked about in that you can do something for fun. You do not have to be the best at it to do it at all. And the sharing of hobbies and why do you sing? Why do you do anything is a big part of this movie too. Look at the VTuber who got completely eclipsed by Belle and her revelation at the end. She's just a person like me, like that kind of story. I don't have to be the best to do a thing at all. And that character was part of that story. But also we got this ridiculous thing.
They're virtual idols.
Yep.
It's not quite the same thing.
I think they are very close to being the same thing because what we're not at, Belle does not have an AI that is continuing to be Belle when Belle's not online.
Well, I guess, yeah. It's not the same as Hatsune Miku, right?
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, where there is no one.
It's more Macross Plus, where there is a person who is sharing apple.
Which is why I'm saying it's more VTuber, because that's what VTubers are. They make a persona that.
But a VTuber isn't necessarily like making and performing music, right? It's just.
Well, they're making and performing online content
with a different, graphic, right?
Yeah.
Avatar instead of your own face. But a virtual idol is like specifically singing, dancing, performing music.
Well, VTuber is a superset of virtual idol.
Maybe. Anyway.
So
the scene in the train station. Spoilers, I guess.
Yeah, it was really funny. Yeah,
So
if you haven't seen the movie, just stop listening because we're gonna spoil a few things, but we won't go crazy on spoilers, obviously.
Right. So the scene in the train station. So some of the parts of the scene I saw coming way in advance, like the fact that the really popular girl was actually nice and not a jerk.
Yep.
Right.
The trope of
clearly...
the two awkward characters who are actually popular don't realize that the person who they think is the popular one is just as awkward as them. Like that's a trope that I enjoy in general.
Right. Also, you could get a hint actually from the excellent animation. The popular girl in the opening scene, right, is like, oh, she's so pretty and popular and talented, but she's doing a funky dance with a saxophone, and the way that dance is animated is just so fun to look at.
Right.
I could tell, and I was like, wait, that's the popular girl that they're all,
Yeah, the try hard band nerd. Okay.
I'm like, she's definitely a weirdo, right? She's not. Like, why is she? She's not like Mean Girls, ultra popular princess, clearly, right? You could tell right away. And then in that same scene, they introduce her. They introduce weird canoe guy, right? And you could just tell immediately, like, canoe guy and the saxophone girl. That's gonna happen. Because it's one of those things where it's like everyone thinks the two popular kids wanna, the hot dude. Wants to get with the popular girl, but no, they both want, it's a double up, right? It's they both want to do with the less popular, weirdo people anyway. But so in this train station scene, that all comes to a head, right? And, it's great because in some animes and mangas, especially older ones, you get that sort of never ask her out deal.
Yep.
Right? Where they're so, teenagers who are shy and timid and
Miyaka, Tamahome.
Right. It never happens.
And if you get that reference, you're at least as old as I am.
Right. Or the more popular thing, I guess, these days is you get like those ones where just get together right at the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
You get this relationship that goes for the show. Right. Here, I think they struck this really great balance where you had the teenage, hesitance and shyness, right, present, but they still got together, right? And not just at the last possible second, and they got together in a way that is hilarious, right? They managed to work in the comedy to sort of ease off on the sort of like ooh kind of feelings, right? Or to make it work. So, but yeah, it's just like suddenly like the movie, which is slows down at that point like a whole lot, like to stillness, like Rim said, to give you this very real world, real feelings kind of scene. Right? That, I wouldn't be surprised if that scene was like, a couple minutes long.
Oh yeah. It was much like
not much happens.
Like the Evangelion elevator scene. Like, no, we're going to make you sit here. It's just going to keep going. And every time you think, okay, that was long enough, it just keeps going.
Yep.
So the scene for me, and a minor spoiler, when the old people, because, the girl, Belle, like she's a VTuber and she's keeping her identity secret. Like only her friend knows. But kids all think the adults don't know what's up. And when all the old people are like, oh yeah, she must be having some drama with the VTuber stuff. Like we should go help her. Like the adults knew the entire time, just like in real life, adults are way more savvy than kids know. And I think this movie, the fact that it called that out so directly at the right moment in the movie was just great.
I think also you have to realize though that this is set not in in some near-ish future, right? So if this is what 2050, don't know what year it is, right? But those old people are basically us or younger than us.
Well, imagine us if we had kids. Our kids couldn't hide shit from us that they were doing online. I would know every single thing.
Those old people are people who grew up in some kind of internet. They weren't like our parents who grew up in the 20th century almost entirely. Right?
Yep. We were literally the last generation that had an analog childhood. Everyone after us, digital from day one.
But the movie sort of, takes the fact that it knows you're watching the movie in 2021, right? Even though it takes place in the future, and therefore it can sort of pull a aha and remind you that, yeah, this old, even though we've only showed you mostly younger people using this internet, no, the whole society is really using it. This service, right? It doesn't get that many users if it's all kids.
Yeah. And this movie's great. We've talked for a while, and I'm hungry, so
I'm way hungry. I got to order a food.
And we went long, so I think we'll wrap it up there because what else could we say? Go see this movie as soon as you safely and easily can. It's an original anime movie by a great director, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Hour and 15 minutes on that one.